I really love using the PNG format with a lot of my images when I design a website. And so there's so many benefits of working with a PNG format compared to a GIF, definitely. There's definitely some benefits over a JPEG. I still use JPEG formats when I have full color photos that I want to place onto my website. But the PNG has so much to offer, and it's really a great format. So I'm going to take a little time today in my video to show you how to save in Photoshop, how to work and create that PNG format. So what are some benefits of the PNG format? As you start looking at this, there's so many neat little things that you can actually will see. Um, so one of the things is that you have to understand is that it was designed to replace the GIF format. That was the big, GIF or GIF, either way you can say both on that part. It has what we call lossless compression. That means no image data is going to be lost when saving the image. When you work with JPEGs, every time you save a image as a JPEG, you are actually losing information, little data. And so sometimes what will happen is that quality will suffer. Not is it something that's very noticeable? Well, when you save as a JPEG, it depends on how much of the compression that you want to save it as on that part. So a PNG is a lossless compression. PNG supports transparency, even alpha channels. So if you work with Photoshop, you can actually create a alpha channel, and it would know the boundaries of that and so forth. Full spectrum of colors. GIF, when you work with GIF, you have a limited number of colors that you can use. So that's why a GIF format was great for clip art, great for logos, because it's very limited in colors on that part. And of course, progressive rendering, which means that the image is going to show on the web typically at a lower res. They'll show the entire image. Sometimes there's a different type of rendering, like in JPEGs, where you can basically, it'll start building from the top of the image down. So there's a difference with that aspect as well. So again, some benefits of this, what I really like is the transparency, and that's what I want to concentrate on here, is to be able to show you how to save a transparent PNG. Here I have just a sample of a website that I've created. Again, it's not completed. But typically what will happen is a lot of times people place their logo up here in the top left hand corner, and they usually have a background color that they have set up in the header section of their page. And notice here, just assume that this dog is their logo on that part. Sometimes it'll have like a white background around the image, and what we want to do is we want to prevent seeing that color, like in this case the blue color, around the dog. So what we want to do is we want to make that area transparent so the green comes through from the background, and that's where the PNG comes in play. Okay, so right now I have the image of the dog open in Photoshop, and there's multiple ways of doing it. First, the general way to work with this is to select your object. Once you get your object selected, move it to a new layer and then hide the other layers. So the object should be on its own layer, and then all the layers below should be hidden, and then when you save as a PNG, that area will become transparent. So there's multiple ways to select this, and what I'm going to do is I'm quickly going to use the quick selection tool. I'm going to paint around the dog. Now if I go in, don't worry, I'm going to hold down my Alt key or Option key if you're on the Mac. I'm going to paint this back in. But again, don't worry, because this is what I love about Photoshop. And if you have not used Refine Edges yet, Refine Edges will allow us to get closer to the edge. It'll determine what the background is, and it'll try to create, they're like these extra hairs that are coming out, the fur that's coming out from the dog. It'll try to keep those individual strands. Now what I want to do, because I selected the background, I really want the dog selected. I'm going to go up to Select and choose Inverse. I'm going to clean up those edges by clicking on Refine Edge. And now what will happen is a little box will come up. I like to always go, by default, it'll probably say marching ants or something like that. What I like to do is I like to go on black because it really helps me see certain things. You can see if I go on black, it's really not that great. So now what I want to do, I'm just going to paint around the edges on that part. So you're going to kind of go like this. You're going to, you want to kind of go into the background, and you notice how I'm not going entirely into the background itself. I'm kind of straddling the object as well as the background. And then what you want to do is you want to just kind of paint along these edges, and if you see something that doesn't work out as much, you can always go back and clean it up. Now I'm going to do a little quicker job here, but of course you want to go in and spend a little extra time to make sure you got everything you want. Now what's going to happen is you can see that these hair strands, especially on the left hand side, they're going to stand out a little bit more on that part. So again, the refined edges is really great on that. It helps. Now it works well when you have a distinction between the object you're selecting with the background on that part. Now if your background's a little bit busy, then that might not work as much, but it's something you can always try out. Now again, there's some areas I can clean up a little bit. I can use these other tools here, but for time purposes I'm just going to click OK. And what I want to do next is I'm going to go up and make this into a new layer. So I'm going to go up to Layer, New, via Cut, and I'm going to hide the background layer. So now what we see here is we see checkerboard, which basically indicates that it's transparency on that part. Now a lot of times you got to watch where you work with that refine edge where the brushes are, because if you go too much in, you might make part of the body of the dog transparent. So that's where you have to kind of take your time. I like to zoom in and just go around the edges, do short edges, and then see how it looks. If it doesn't, just that's where the undo comes in play. Now I'm just going to double check my resolution here. I'm just going to go up to image size. In this case, the resolution is set to 150. I'm going to change that to 72. Okay. Now, in this case, I'm going to do a file export, and I'm going to choose export as. The quick export as a PNG gives you, just simply saves as a PNG. Export as gives you a little more control. So I'm going to click on this. This will open up a dialog box. Okay, and what you want to do here is you want to change the format to be a PNG, and by default it'll have transparency turned on, which is great on that part. If you don't, it'll actually come in and make it, this white background and so forth. So again, you want to keep the transparency. You can also control the size here too. So you remember, with width and height, if you want to control that, you can do that as well. So when you do the export as, you get a little more control on that part. And I'm just going to click on export all. I'm going to click on save. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just modify my code here just to make sure that the dog JPEG is now dog PNG. Now when I save this, let's go back to my browser. I'm going to click on reload, and you're going to see the blue background disappear. So as you can see here, some of the blue most of the blue has disappeared. Now granted, there might be areas where you can fine tune, and that's where you have to kind of figure out back when you're doing the refine edges as well. So that's why I say when you're working with refined edges, make sure you do smaller strokes and watch what you're doing, what you're selecting, because when you get to the end and you have this in here and you don't like it, you have to start all over. So that's why it's important to kind of work with that and take your time on that part. So now you create a transparent PNG, and now you can see the green background coming through, and then you can do other things to it if you wanted. So again, something to take a look at using PNG formats. If you're using GIFs, try to convert over to PNGs, and then take a look at your transparency of aspect of the PNG format, because I think it's going to be a very essential tool. If you're not using it now, it's great for beginners to start learning.